So this news is a bit of a heartbreaker, but it looks like Glenn Schofield, who is the director of the original Dead Space, which, I mean, come on, you got the original guy trying to help make a game here, says that EA recently turned down his Dead Space 4 proposal. And you'll never guess why it was turned down.
Money!
That's right, this historic franchise which helped push the horror genre in a whole new direction is just on hold completely at this point by EA, and it's strictly just because of financial reasons, which I think really showcases the current state of the gaming industry and how risk aversion is the biggest thing that's stopping creativity from happening within this entire genre or this entire media of game, which is just sad to see. So I want to dive into this a little bit and go like, okay, what's actually happening here? Why is all this not being approved? Because you would think they would want more. You would think they would want more Dead Space because the last one was so well received that you would just want to keep printing these out, but apparently it's just there's not financial reasoning behind it. So if you like this video, like, subscribe is always appreciated. Let's get right into those details. In a recent interview with Dan Allen Gaming, some of the major creators right here of Dead Space went on to talk about the franchise, their experience, and Glenn Schofield, the guy who was the lead, the director, the game director, the guy who has the creative vision behind Dead Space, talks about how he recently went to EA, and these two other guys, Brett Robbins and Christopher Stone, went to EA to propose the idea of like, hey, you want to do Dead Space 4? Probably would be a pretty cool idea, right? And EA was like, no. Quoted saying, we tried actually, the three of us, yeah, we tried Dead Space 4. All three of us sat down and we wanted to do it. Continuing on saying, well, we didn't go too deep. They just said, no, we're not interested right now. We appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. Which I think really goes to show the difficulties that we're dealing with right now when it comes to the gaming industry as a whole. That even a well-known franchise as Dead Space, there is a fan base out there. You will sell millions of copies that a publisher like EA sees that and goes like, you know what, it's just not worth the risk. We're not going to make our money back, which is just shocking to see in an era that's so full of remakes and sequels, and not very many new IPs are getting created as much as they were back in the day, right? Because it's just not guaranteed money. But you have a name like Dead Space, everyone knows this franchise. You would think it'd just be an easy W for them to do. But EA doesn't even see the opportunity there, mainly just because they shut down the studio that makes Dead Space, Visceral Studios, back in 2017, and they put the entire franchise on hold. Stated here in this Forbes article that recently was released, and EA reportedly viewed the remake, which we recently had, as underperforming, moving only 2 million units when they wanted to have 5 million. And even canceling the Dead Space 2 remake that Motive Studios wanted to make. This was going to happen. EA was like, nah, not possible right now because of how it underperformed with the original one, which is just surprising to see. I understand, like, yeah, business needs to do whatever financially viable for them, totally makes sense, but I think there's also a part of it that, like, EA needs to do some things that kind of like makes people happy. Really just because like a game like Dead Space would absolutely do that. You can see here on the Metacritic score of the Dead Space remake, it was rated an 89 out of 100. So this is a very well received remake that you think it just kind of put more goodwill to EA, try to recoup their image a little bit, because as we've seen many years over, EA is one of the most hated companies in the world. So just for example, if you want to know how hated this company is, you look at the most hated companies right here in the United States, and we have Equifax as one. That's one of like the tax credit score people. No one likes that. Fox Entertainment Group for their own reasons. The NFL because of, well, their whole fan base is weird. University of Phoenix because it's a scam. And then you have Electronic Arts. Not the greatest company to be a part of. And Christopher Stone, who we mentioned earlier, one of the devs who wanted to help make a Dead Space 4, said that the industry is in a weird place right now. People are really hesitant to take a chance on things. So you've got to, take it with a grain of salt. Who knows? Maybe one day, I think we'd all love to do it. And Schofield chiming in on that, saying, yeah, we have great ideas for Dead Space 4. And we've actually seen like how a remake can completely revitalize a franchise. Just like how the Resident Evil 4 remake completely revitalized that franchise to get people excited about it again. Because they're taking what these fantastic games were back in the day and, updating them to a little bit more modern type of handling, mechanics, and things like that. And obviously for graphical standards as well. but you can see how like something like this can just completely work in their favor. And like, yeah, we did have a lot of success when it comes to critical reviews when it came to the Dead Space remake. People loved it, super well reviewed, but the money just wasn't there apparently, which is just shocking to see. I don't know what they thought they were going to make off of a remake from a game that came out almost 15 years ago. But you know, one person's trash as an EA to Dead Space is another person's treasure. So maybe another publishing studio could pick up Dead Space and handle it properly for it to have proper financial expectations, so then we can get more content. A brand new Dead Space would be incredible, since I believe the last one we had was Dead Space 3, and that was quite some time ago, and a lot of people didn't really view that as a true Dead Space game, because it was much more action focused, the co-op element with it as well, which is kind of a cool idea to do when it comes to like these story-based single-player experiences, but to have it be much more action focused, not really leaning into that horror side of things, right? Like kind of how the original Dead Space kind of had like that original Alien vibe, right? Where just one person on a ship trying to survive and get out of the whole situation. Well, that wasn't really Dead Space 3, so a lot of fans don't really even consider that like a third entry into the franchise. It was its own bastardized redhead stepchild version of Dead Space. Kind of in the same way how so many people want a new Indiana Jones movie, because everyone only views the first three as like the actual movies, and everything came after that doesn't really count. Kind of the same way as like in Dead Space 3, where it had obviously Dead Space in the name, but it just didn't really capture the same kind of tone and vibe that you would expect out of a game within this franchise. And so I would hope we get something new. Like I would think with the original developers making Dead Space 4, I think would really get people excited about this franchise again. A lot more, I think, excited than I think an actual remake would, because a remake, it just like, it gets you excited for a moment, right? You play through it one time, you're like, hey, the memories were great, that was nice, but it doesn't really like hold players, right? This could also just be another Titanfall situation again with this, because Dead Space, the remake, released back in January 27th of 2023. We're just fresh out of the holiday season. People were playing all the new games that came out like October and November in that time frame back in 2022. 2023 was an incredible year of video games, incredibly competitive. As soon after the launch of this game, you had Hogwarts Legacy that released just a couple weeks later, which obviously was the biggest selling game of the year. So I think that maybe it's more just EA just kind of shooting themselves in the foot, not fully trusting their franchises and to stand on their own, to just kind of throw it like in right before one of the biggest game releases of the year, or the most financially successful game of the year. Kind of just shows that like I just don't think EA truly knows what to do with Dead Space. Do you want to see Dead Space 4? Let me know in the comments if you made this far in the video. I hope I earned your like, maybe even a subscribe. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.